What's up, Tailgaters? You're in the booth with Tailgate Nate today, and welcome to my channel, and welcome to the 2024 UFL Playoff Predictions. The UFL playoffs are finally here, and although we've known the four teams that are going to be making the playoffs for a while, you got to get a little taste of what these two games were going to be like now that they finally mean that these teams get to play for a UFL championship. Last week was absolute chaos when these four teams faced off. They'll be battling it out again, and this time it's for the right to go play for a spring league title. Thank you for supporting my channel. If you want to support my channel in literally any way possible, the biggest thing you can do is hit the subscribe button and ring the bell. You should especially do so if you're a college football fan, because I'm predicting all 134 FBS level college football teams this summer, which means I'm doing your favorite team. So again, subscribe, ring that bell. You're going to know when your favorite team has a video up on my channel. But you can also do more than that. Watching the video, huge way to help support my channel. You can like, you can comment, you can share. Really anything that you guys do to interact with the channel, help support what I do here on YouTube, and I greatly appreciate all of that. I do want to apologize once again for no UFL video this past week. I needed to take a week off to avoid some burnout factors, but I am back this week, and hey, you got a little taste of the playoffs this past week. Here's what I am going to do. I'm going to go through I shouldn't say every single matchup. I'm going to go through these two matchups that are in front of us here. We're going to go ahead and talk about what happened last week, some key players entering the UFL championship, or I should say the conference championship weekend, and then we will go through and give you my predictions for who I think will be playing for a spring league title. So without further ado, we are going to start out with the first game that is going to be taking place this weekend, and that is the USFL Conference Championship. The Michigan Panthers, who by far are, well, at least in my opinion, one of the stories of the UFL season, are going up against the powerhouse, the two-time USFL champs in the Birmingham Stallions. And this one was an absolute thriller this past week. So Michigan actually got the upper hand on Birmingham for most, if not all, of that game. Well, obviously not all. They didn't end up walking away with the win, but they got the upper hand on Birmingham most of that game. And I believe it was 16-6 entering that fourth quarter. Birmingham just did not have a lot of life offensively, but a couple touchdowns later, they were able to go down the field. They were able to tie that game, eventually end up taking the lead, and then Michigan, with I believe it was right around a minute, maybe even a little less than that on the clock, were able to drive down the field, get in Jake Bates' field goal range, which we know he has himself a leg, and he missed the potential game-winning field goal. I'm not sure if that would have given the Michigan Panthers home field advantage or not, so regardless, it is the Stallions who will end up getting the home field advantage in the USFL Conference Championship, and what a game this was this past week. As mentioned, Bates did miss that potential game winner. The Stallions able to get that come-from-behind comeback win to hopefully spark a little momentum here, and you would figure if you are that coaching staff and even some of the players on that Stallions roster, you want to play a little bit better coming into this game. But for the Michigan Panthers, you got to talk about that defense. It's been one of the stories of the season for them all year long, and it slowed down the Stallions' pass game. And what was notable about that? Adrian Martinez has been playing at an MVP level caliber, and the Panthers being able to slow that down really helped the Panthers be in the lead for as long as they were and put them in great position to try to put away the Birmingham Stallions and win that game. And the pass rush was very effective there in that game. A couple mistakes down the line, though, did end up costing them, and well, Adrian Martinez and the Stallions offense ended up getting hot late. And obviously, you can't fault Jake Bates too much. He's been sensational all year long. Michigan was already in the playoffs, so the Panthers giving the Stallions just maybe a little taste of what is to come here in the conference championship weekend. However, for the Birmingham Stallions, yes, you get that come from behind win, but while I'm focusing on the negatives here for the Stallions and the positive for the Panthers, at least from what you see on screen, I'm going to talk about the positive for the Stallions, in which were they rallied and they were able to come from behind. They were able to find that offensive spark late. However, throughout most of the game, Adrian Martinez, just especially the way he's played over these past couple weeks, didn't necessarily look like himself, and the defense let up way too many chunk plays. I don't remember any huge explosive plays that happened, but a lot of 20-yard plays. A lot of 15 to 20, maybe even some 30-yard plays in there were allowed by the Stallions defense. Now, that is going to have to change entering this week. If Michigan showed us anything, by the way, Danny Etling came back at quarterback this past week, but if the Panthers showed us anything in that game, it's that the Stallions are beatable. And a lot of people have figured the Stallions are beatable. Heck, the San Antonio Brahmas, one of the teams that made the playoffs, did beat the Birmingham Stallions in the regular season. What an interesting UFL championship game that would be. You'll have to see if that's my prediction here later on. But for the Birmingham Stallions, guys, they definitely do look beatable. They look like a team that can be beat. The Michigan Panthers, with that aggressive defense, Danny Etling coming back, they should have Matt Colburn for this game too. We'll talk more about that in a second. Or actually, we'll talk more about that right now. I'm giving you 5 players to watch for each team entering this game. Offensively for the Michigan Panthers, I just said his name a little bit ago, Matthew Colburn. He's been absolutely fantastic for the Panthers this year. A lot of people figured it would be Wes Hills to be that feature back, and while Wes Hills has definitely had his moments, it is Matt Colburn that has taken this run game by storm, especially as you move into the second half here of the season. And they have another explosive weapon who earned some all UFL honors as well, and that is their explosive wideout in Marcus Sims. He is a big play threat. He can catch the short routes. He's got great hands, good speed. Marcus Sims is a really, really dangerous player. Those are 2 guys on offense that the Stallions are going to have a lot of trouble being able to slow down here in this USFL Conference Championship game. Do have some notable defensive players to talk about. We'll skip over the middle name for a good reason. There's a reason that there is an asterisk next to his name, but we got to talk about some of these defensive backs. Kai Nakua has been one of the best defensive backs in the entire league. I believe off the top of my head, 8 passes defended, 3 picks for him this season, as well as beating the leading tackler for this Michigan Panther defense. They like to play that safety back. Kai Nakua is that guy, and he's been simply sensational for the Panthers this season. In order to get a leg up on the Stallions, he's going to need to be 1 step ahead of Adrian Martinez. He is going to need to be a really good player. And the Nate Brooks has been a guy that has been probably their best cornerback this season. He's been a really, really good player. You got to be able to watch out for him there, as Brooks probably will end up taking on the matchup of Deon Cain. Maybe he'll get slotted onto Sternberger at some points during this conference championship matchup as well. But the guy I skipped over talking about is Breland Speaks. He is a very dynamic player, especially once he's able to get into the backfield. He has been very limited in practices. Now, as far as my knowledge goes, as of recording this video, I do not know his status for the game that is slated to go on today. So if Breland Speaks is going to play, it's going to give Michigan Panthers a great leg up in that pass rush. If he doesn't, that's definitely going to be something that the Stallions are going to want to look to attack. And speaking of attack, quarterback Adrian Martinez is obviously the player to watch for the Birmingham Stallions. He needs to be electric, and he needs to have a much better game than what he did last season. He leads this team in passing. He emerged himself between him and Matt Corral as that starting quarterback. He leads this team in rushing. He is a great dual threat quarterback, right now on track to win the league MVP, but Adrian Martinez has got to be able to put it together here in this game. No uncharacteristic mistakes. We know in college he definitely did have some turnover problems. Those cannot resurface in this game. He can't play as poorly as he did this past week. The Stallions are going to need him to be electric against this aggressive Panther defense, and a lot of their weapons will have to be as well. Yes, you have Person and Maribel in that back room, or not that back room, that running back room, I should say, but I'm looking more at the pass catchers for this game to try to attack this Michigan Panthers secondary. I'm talking about Deon Cain, the lead wide receiver for this team, even though I do believe Jay Sternberger ends up leading them overall in receiving yards, but nonetheless of what the stats say. Well, I guess the stats do say that these are their 2 best pass catchers. They need to show up big time. This is the Michigan Panther defensive backroom that's really, really good. They need to go up, win some 50-50 balls, and make some plays. Adrian Martinez going to need to trust his guys a little bit. Nose tackle Carlos Davis has to be an interior force. He's got to be able to create havoc in the backfield, and it's going to be up to him and the rest of his defensive linemen to try to slow down Matt Colburn, and if the Panthers happen to throw Wes Hills at him, sure, and keep Danny Etling in the pocket for the secondary of the Stallions to work. But you got to watch them, what my opinion are one of the best, or I should say is one of the best linebackers in the UFL, and that's Kayava Tazino. He's been a really, really good player for the Stallions this year. I believe leads them in tackles, has over 70 of them, and I believe to be one of the best linebackers this league has to offer. He's been a sensational player. He'll be a force on the defensive end for the Stallions, which leads me to my prediction. So the Stallions going to be the favorite by 5 here. Of course, they get home field advantage. This game's set to take off at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time today, and that's going to be on ABC or ESPN from Birmingham, Alabama. Run through the keys of this game really quickly. Etling is going to be the starter here. He came back this past week, and for all intents and purposes, all the coaching staff and all the media around the Michigan Panthers are saying he is to start this game. He needs to be good. Again, quarterback play has been one of the inconsistencies and one of the issues for Michigan here, but Danny Etling coming in, he is going to end up needing to be that guy. He's going to end up making some explosive plays, but he's also got to trust his playmakers. Colburn and Sims need those chunk plays. Now, while I don't believe those two ended up playing this past week, the chunk plays were there, and the Panther offense was able to get not really whatever they wanted, but they were able to gain a lot of yards on the Stallions team. It's now up to Colburn and Sims. They're going to need to generate those chunk plays that some of the other playmakers for the Panthers did last week and keep up the pass rush, be able to limit what Adrian Martinez does, just as the Panthers did this past week. They did everything they needed to this past week apart from closing that game. What do the Stallions need to do to make sure this one is a little bit more convincing? Well, I've said it before, so I won't linger on it. Martinez needs to have a better game. He's got to be electric with his arm and with his legs, but this is up to the defense here. The defense, I think, needs to stuff that line of scrimmage, be able to slow down what Matt Colburn in this run game are going to be able to provide, and the no man behind you mentality. You can't be giving up these chunk yardage plays. You can't let the Michigan Panthers be keeping these drives alive. You want the ball in the hands of Adrian Martinez. The defense cannot allow these big plays downfield, especially when a guy like Marcus Sims is out there on the field at that wide receiver position. I think this is going to be another very competitive, very close game, a little bit more scoring than what we saw in the matchup this past week, but I still think the best team prevails, and that to me is the Birmingham Stallions. Not only do I think they are the best team, I think they also, well, not I think, it's proven that they are also the more healthy team, as, again, the Michigan Panthers have some injury lingering issues going on there. I believe Willicke's is another player that is definitely not going to be playing, and you could be without Breland Speaks as well. So I think Adrian Martinez with a much better game this time around. His defense is going to step up, make a couple plays, and while the Panthers give it a good fight, the Stallions will be moving on to try to win their third straight Spring League title. I got them winning this one 24-22. Okay, the USFL Championship game is wrapped up. Now we got to move over to the XFL Conference Championship game, and this was another really hard-fought battle this past week. So, what ended up happening this past week? Let's talk about it. The Brahmas down the entire game. They go down the field and they score to make it a 1-point game, and they go gutsy. They try to go for it. They try to go for two to win the game, and initially it looks like they did. It converts, and the Brahmas are celebrating, but hold on, St. Louis wants to use their super challenge, right? It's a challenge in the UFL where you can challenge any call that was made, not made, etc. And what the officials found was that it was an ineligible man downfield that wiped this one away from the San Antonio Brahmas, and the St. Louis Battlehawks survive, clinch home field advantage, which is bigger in the XFL championship game than I think it is in the USFL championship game. Yes, Birmingham is a good home field advantage, but St. Louis and San Antonio, you could argue that's the 1 first best and 2 second best home field advantages in the entire league. So home field advantage here was absolutely huge. It was huge in this game for the Battlehawks, as again they ended up winning it, but the Brahmas come up this short of being able to play on their home turf. But what ended up happening here was there was a missed field goal with 8 seconds left as well. So the Brahmas had their fair share of chances to be able to win this game. apart from, or I shouldn't say apart from, including that game-winning 2-point conversion that ended up getting overturned. Again, the St. Louis can't do anything with the football. They drive back down the field and they miss a field goal with 8 seconds left. That also would have clinched their home field advantage. I totally forgot to mention that before we moved on there. But there definitely are some great things to take away from that. Jontre Kirkland was electric. He was really, really good. He'll have to be electric again this upcoming matchup, and the defense was absolutely everywhere. They were forcing sacks, tackles for losses, missed throws from A.J. McCarron, and if the stat sheet is all that you look at, you would think, and well, you also probably would be right in the fact that A.J. McCarron just wasn't a big factor, and he really wasn't at all. Now, there were some good chunk yardage plays that were there. I believe everyone that caught a pass there for St. Louis, for the most part, of course, I believe the top 4 receivers had a pickup of at least 10 yards. So the chunk plays were there. But A.J. McCarron just was not his usual self. Much like the conversation we just talked about with Adrian Martinez, A.J. McCarron has got to be better here, but the turnovers really did help this defense. I believe there were 1 or 2 turnovers here for St. Louis that were able to keep San Antonio away from a drive to go down the field and potentially score. And if those 2 drives and didn't result in turnovers for St. Louis, or I should say didn't result in turnovers for San Antonio, again, we don't know for sure, but they definitely could have had a pretty convincing win over St. Louis to be able to win that home field advantage there. So unfortunately for San Antonio, that was not the case. St. Louis gets home field advantage, and even though you probably consider that either of these teams didn't really play their best ball, they're going in to this one here with a great game under their belt this past week. There was controversy, there was drama, and now we're going back to St. Louis for the XFL Conference Championship. Ooh, I am really, really excited to watch this game. But first, before I predict it, I got to talk about some key players here. So, Chase Garbers, he has an asterisk beside him as well. The same thing that happened with Breland Speaks. Chase Garbers, who knows if he plays. Now, whether it's Chase Garbers or Quentin Dormady, the quarterback here for San Antonio is a must-watch player because he is going to have to connect with his targets. This is a backfield with San Antonio that I don't necessarily trust them fully 100% to give a lot of relief to this quarterback room. However, I trust this wide receiver room, or I should say this pass catching room, immensely with guys like Cody Latimer and Jontre Kirkland, who again, with Kirkland is another one of my players to watch. He had a big game this past week. You need another big game from your lead receiver here in this game. But it is all about the Brahmas defense that has been sensational for the team this year. Tavante Beckett has been one of the best linebackers in the entire league. He has been a truly exceptional player, and he's going to need to be exceptional here. You're going to have to rush him, play him in some pass rush sets. You're going to need to be able to drop him back in coverage to defend these absolutely ball-hawking threats that St. Louis poses on the outside. But you do have some help with that as well. A couple of defensive backs I do want to highlight. Teez Tabor has been just an absolutely sensational player. Now, the stats aren't going to show that he's the leading tackler among the cornerbacks. I don't even think he's the leading interception man among corners either, but he's a truly sensational player, and it just feels like whenever a big play needs to be made for the Brahmas, it is Teez Tabor that ends up making that play, as well as a guy by the name of Jordan Mosley, who's been one of, if not the best safeties in the entire league. He's the leading tackler for this team. He's a big force that you got to watch out for here for the Brahmas. The Battlehawks, I've mentioned his name many times. It's A.J. McCarron, a player to watch. Much like the conversation with Adrian Martinez, he's got to have a better game here, so I won't beat that point any farther down. There are a ton of talented wide receivers here, and I almost went with Ja'Cour Pearson on this list just because we know what Hakeem Butler can do. So I would watch out for Ja'Cour Pearson, but Hakeem Butler has been the leading receiver in this room this season. So you got to be able to watch out for him, and this is the defensive back room for San Antonio that's going to need to try to lock him down. But I went with a player in each level of the defense here for St. Louis because while it maybe not sneakily has been one of the better defenses here. It has been a little bit of a surprise to me that St. Louis, especially from the way this defense performed in the first couple of weeks, they've been able to turn around. They've been able to play really, really well. Travis Feeney on the defensive line has been sensational, especially coming off the edge as a pass rusher. Willie Harvey, again, one of the best linebackers in this league, I believe is this team's top tackler as well. Got to watch out for him. And Cameron Kelly at the cornerback position is an interception machine. He's been picking passes off left, right, and center. And he's going to need to be a big factor in this game for the St. Louis Battlehawks. But quickly running through my keys to this game. This one on Sunday, tomorrow, June 9th, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Fox from the Dome in St. Louis, Missouri. What do the Brahmas have to do to make sure that last week's result isn't duplicated? Well, one, efficiency must remain the name of the game here. When you get in the red zone, get touchdowns. No stupid penalties, and while that ineligible man downfield may not have been fully realized by this Brahmas team, it is mistakes like that that you cannot afford to have against this Battlehawks team. They are going to come out and they are going to play better. So efficiency, you need to be able to be efficient, especially that means when you get into the red zone, you need to be able to capitalize with points. Generate sacks and tackles for loss. There should be a D at the end of and, not and, but if you can generate that and you can get it into the backfield, you can get A.J. McCarron on the ground, you can slow down this rushing duo of Gallman and Sayers, this is going to be an absolutely phenomenal time for the San Antonio Brahmas. But who can slow down the explosive plays? That's not just a key for San Antonio. I'm not talking about what player here. I'm talking about what team, because I do think there is going to be a little bit more offense. In fact, a lot more offense in this game. I think there are going to be more points. McCarron is going to play better. The San Antonio has got a ton of talented weapons, so who can allow the least explosive plays? That'll be a big key to watch for both defenses in this game. But when talking about just the Battlehawks, AJ and the red zone offense just has to be better. The red zone offense was just not great this past week, and AJ McCarron was just not playing like his usual self. He's got to get back up to his standard, and the red zone offense, just like I talked about with San Antonio, has to be efficient. The defense will need some turnovers again, as I do expect San Antonio to play really well here, but I just think home field advantage will be a little bit too much. Again, a friendly reminder, all lines and odds are as of recording this video. Again, while I see there being a little bit more offense than there was this past week, I'm going to go ahead and give this game to the St. Louis Battlehawks. Again, I think the home field advantage is really going to play into the hands of this team. A.J. McCarron is going to play much better than he did this past week. And I also trust this defense a lot. I think Cameron Kelly's going to come up with a huge interception in this game to be able to seal it. And I think that the Battlehawks will be moving on to play the Stallions in the UFL Championship game. That's the matchup that a lot of people are looking forward to. Number one seed out of the XFL conference and number one seed out of the USFL conference. And those are the two teams that I do have moving on. But I'm curious, please let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Give me your predictions. And later on today, we'll be resuming the 134, or I should say the road to predicting all 134 college football teams. So hey, remember to play hard but tailgate harder and enjoy the UFL postseason. I'll be back next week with my prediction for the championship game. Goodbye.